everybody. Welcome back to Earth and Star Spiritual Wellness Center. And today I have a very special guest, Mr. Roland.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now, Roland, your website is In the Healing Light. Is that right?
Right. Correct.
You want to tell us a little bit about your website or what you do specifically, your training, your background a little bit, so people who haven't seen you before know, and most of you guys should know Roland because he was with us last year. He's done some work with us before, and he's an amazing energy worker that is very special to me. But you let everybody know what you want them to know about you.
Okay. Yeah. So my background, like a lot of people, it's just kind of as a kid and throughout your life feeling stuff until it finally was directed towards Reiki, I don't know, 15 years ago or so. And that actually, through the connections through that, led me to take shamanism, and a year of shamanism, then another year advanced shamanism, and taken a few other little courses here and there, but mostly what I do is my own form. I tap into all those other teachings and I tap into shamanism on a regular basis, but my work is getting people to look within, is getting people to address that deepness, and it's mostly dealing with stuff on energies on an emotional level. Like all of us that are doing energy work, it's always changing. Something's, either through an event, through a client, or something that opens up the next door. But it really just comes down to where we're vibrating and what's keeping you from vibrating like we should be, and through that higher vibration, seeing the light that is you, seeing your true self. So it's all about digging deep and helping people to go through those places that a lot of times they don't want to go through. And then often I'll just do any other kind of energy clearings and different things that or hold space for people for any other type of event that may be needed. But the bottom line is seeing what we've forgotten about, seeing that light within, seeing that true self that has been buried by our thoughts or our wounds, which usually our thoughts are because of our wounds and things like that.
One thing that stood out to me, so I want to be honest with you guys. I'm just going to be honest. Before we started recording this, Roland got one word of what we were supposed to talk about, and I pulled 3 cards that all just had similar shapes, spirals, circles, and the one word was time. That's what came up. And there's like a million different directions we can go with this. And I pulled the flow card too. So we're just going to flow through because we feel confident that the people who need to see this will get the message that they're meant to get out of this. And one thing that stood out to me, well, there's actually 2 things that stood out to me. One thing stood out about what you said, but then another message came through, and it's really kind of pushing. The message that's coming through is there might be a female or feminine energy, maybe not even a female, that might be worried about doing healing work and opening up and being vulnerable with a masculine energy or with a man. And one thing I will say about Roland, because I've heard it a few times where I refer people to certain healers and they're like, oh, I don't want to work with a man. Roland is the safest male you could possibly work with on the healing journey. There are a lot of them out there. And I know somebody who just books with Roland just to talk to him, just to be able to vent and just get it all out because he's such a safe, supportive space. So there's something very special about the maturity of his masculine and feminine as one, and how he's able to hold that space for people of all genders and them still feel nurtured, safe, and supported. So that's just a message that was coming through. But the thing that stood out to me about what you said was how you were talking about the true self within. But I know that for you, your goal for everyone through healing work is for them to reach a state of oneness eventually, or the understanding of the I am.
Mhm.
So if I'm perceiving that correctly, the I am or oneness is the true self.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. Now, I will also say when it comes to the I am, as I grow and change, my I learn. I keep learning, and how I keep saying things. But yes, the true self, the I believe that the oneness is the true self. It's everything. It can be everything in the grand scheme, or it can be just, we can keep it very simple and like it's just this little thing, but it's also everything. So yeah, it's the true self, higher self, soul, the oneness, the divine. But yeah, that which is I am.
So if we're putting the construct of time into this grand or minute space of the I am, what does that look like for the soul? Because it seems like that's the soul's journey, kind of moving throughout time, eventually reaching that I am space, that knowing of its own oneness.
I will. You know how we get messages and have to stop for a moment. It's like, all right, was that my thoughts or was it, and it was, and it's like what I got, and I don't believe it was me. It was almost like when it comes to a soul, they could be trapped in a time, like you were saying, in the circle or even in the loop of, but they're not. It's not really trapped. It's just, you know, whether you want to say we're looking, the soul's looking to grow and heal and move on, and it has to go through all these experiences. But as I know you've experienced and worked with people, and as I have, it seems like as a soul, we often go through these lives over and over and over, and it's almost like that's where I was kind of going. It's almost like it's being trapped in time. You're not able to, because you're having to go through and be re-triggered and things like that on through different lives. So I know it doesn't sound the most positive, but that's just what it felt like. It's almost like you kind of get trapped in that time loop. Instead of not being able to just be, you have to go through something where it's through a process of time, something.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because just yesterday, at the time of this recording, it was just yesterday, we had a lab group, Life's Anonymous Battles group. And I'm going to share this from the group. That's a private group, but I'm going to share this because I'm the one who said it. So I can share what I said.
Yeah.
And it was like, basically, it's an emotional support space where we're talking about things that we're going through or struggling with, and then eventually we get to where we feel lighter and lighter as the fire transmutes that for us. And I started with frustration. Like, I am someone who can see the future. I know where I'm supposed to end up, what that's going to look like, where it's going to be, but it's not time to be there yet. So there's this feeling of being trapped in time and wanting, like, feeling the restlessness, feeling the desire and the energy to create and to move forward, but it's just not time to do that yet. So it's having to sit myself in the present moment over and over and over again. And eventually, by shifting perception and allowing fire to transmute emotions and energy in my body, it came from a space of feeling trapped in time to feeling joy in the present moment. So I know that by shifting perspective, we can do this, but there are also people who might need to do something different. like there's healing work to be done anytime we're in this present moment, kind of coming back into this spiral. And cycles came up for me too when you were speaking. Like sometimes we feel like we're back, like we thought we healed through something, but now we're back in a similar situation. But it's not that we're in the exact same situation. It's almost like we're in a deeper level of the same type of situation, like it's spiraling.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, a different way to see time as well. So what do you have to say about that first off, before we even get even deeper?
I agree with you. It's in what you're saying. As you go through your healing process, or as you're releasing, it allows us to take the next step to this journey, this experience. And it is, it's like trapped in time. We're in that cycle, and we do have to go deeper. So that also makes sense of what you're saying. The next trigger that's going to come into our path, it will not be the same. It'll be similar, but it'll make you look at things differently. If we keep looking at things the same way, we're not experiencing more, we're not learning, we're not changing. But yeah, we have to keep going deeper. You get more into just the metaphysical in general, where it's what's the big answer, what's the true meaning of everything. But we got to look at this. We got to look at ourselves and see what's holding us back, such that we can move on. And like you were mentioning before about being able to see what's coming, but I can't be there yet. It's not time. I have to sit with it. And that can easily change to being further out if we're still not working on this. People ask me, like, why am I 88 years old and I'm just now getting this? Like, well, probably because the first 6 7 decades you weren't looking at this, and it happened when it was supposed to happen, which means when you were ready, when you were being in this moment enough to allow it to happen.
So there's something that's coming up about perception versus experience. It's almost like we have to be able to shift our perception, first of all, to understand we're looking here versus there. But then after that, there comes something later. It's almost like there's steps as we work through this timeline. We have to shift our perspective to have any amount of peace, but by shifting our perspective to ourselves, it's showing us clearly, with clarity, what needs to heal, what needs to be addressed. And then only once those things come up can we actually live harmoniously and peacefully and lovingly in these present moments, moving towards the future.
Earlier this morning, I've heard this before, and I think we've all heard this at some time or another. If you haven't, then it may be good for you, but it's not happening to us, it's happening for us. Mm-hmm. And I literally heard that this morning, and it goes back to what you're saying, the perception. If it's happening to us, we're always going to look outside, and even throughout that comment, why does this keep happening to me? Why does this keep happening? And which goes back into the time. It's like you're in a time loop. It keeps repeating, but it's still, like you were saying, a perception. Because, and I'm as guilty as anybody, we look outside of ourselves as stuff's happening to us, instead of turning that back around and going, okay, what's going on? Why? Just, if nothing else, the main question, why am I, why do I feel stuck? And that's a word that I hear more than probably any other word of people that come to me. It's like, stuck. And once again, it's kind of like being stuck in time or in a loop, and things are just, I'm not getting anywhere. Kind of like you were saying, I can see where I want to be or need to be, but I'm just decade after decade, I'm still in this loop. But yeah, the perception, I agree.
So how do we get unstuck then? Uh, it's crazy. I'm still steady pulling cards, and like I said, of all these cards that I pulled, they all were like circular. But then one of these is the Earth, and I just pulled the Pachamama card too. So there's something about the Earth that keeps coming up with all of this, and I'm not sure how the Earth specifically, or nature, or that gravity that holds us here, I'm not sure what that has to do with getting unstuck, but it feels like there's also a connection there, and like she's the spirit of the earth, or Pachamama herself is almost in this conspiracy of helping us have this life journey and working through all of these experiences that we chose.
Well, let's say it this way. I agree with you, and it's interesting you bring that up, and the Pachamama card comes up because a lot of us on the healing journey, and it doesn't matter if it's spiritual or religious, if we're looking for, too many are still even on or looking outside themselves for answers and looking to a light or a savior or a spirit or divine it's outside of you. And I hope I don't lose my train of thought too badly on this, but it's always up and out, up here and up here. And us on the body, the physical body, and the vibration of the bodies is more like the earth.
Mm-hmm.
We're not vibrating, we need to be able to go back and forth, but we're earth bound beings,
Mm-hmm.
having this experience here on this earth, and it's not outside it. We need that connection, and we can keep looking. We're, first of all, we're not even supposed to be looking outside of ourselves. We should be looking within, and all the stuff I say, I'm constantly trying to say to myself, we got to look within, because all that divine stuff is within us. But if we don't connect to the earth, if we don't release energy to the earth, if we don't release just all the feelings, the emotions, the lower vibrations, things like that, this earth is going to be, it feels like it's going to be part of it. It's all part of the cycle. It's kind of like the crown versus the root. It's, none of this is moving. It's, I'd said it years ago, and I don't know if I'd heard it before or if it came to me, but we're like connectors between the divine and the earth. We are, it's like, I believe we help the earth in the connection to the divine, and vice versa. But through this experience, and whilst when we have like the chakras and energy fields, and whether you're doing like craniosacral work or whatever, it's always that pulse going back and forth, up and down. We're not lying flat on the ground. We'll walk around upright. And it's so the earth definitely, I believe, plays a role in repeating. It provides the space, it provides the energies that you cross here on this earth that lead to what we may think is not so good to what is good. But I think I may have gotten off on a tangent on that, but
It's beautiful. I had a beautiful visual while you were talking, actually, because there is this thing that I believe about apus, or mountains, and it's that it's related to the chakra system in our body. If you think about our chakras, we have the root, the sacral, and the solar towards the bottom, which are seen as more earthbound or human or whatever you want to call it. And then there's the heart, which is the center. And then you have the throat, third eye, and crown, which are almost always associated with their clairs, with connection to spirit, with receiving messages. And so the heart is that middle connector piece. So, as I've said before, anything that wants to manifest from the spirit realms into the 3D has to come down and pass through the heart. And anything that wants to go up from the earth realms up into the spiritual realms or into the heavens has to pass through the heart. Everything has to go through the heart. So the heart's that connector. And I believe the same thing about the top of the mountains and why they're believed to hold so much wisdom is because the mountain top is the part that connects the sky with the earth, with the lowlands. So the mountain top becomes the heart. And now you have just related the entire human body to the heart space because you're saying that the human, that this, our energy fields, like just who we are as a light body, is what connects the planet Earth to the stars in the heavens, or the energies of the earth and those magnetic vibrations to the spirit realm, to the oneness, to the divinity, to the all, to the I am. And if we were to take that trinity and stretch it out across the timeline of healing, on one side we have being the earth, being dust, and on the other side we have the I am, being spirit, being the heavens, being God, the all that is. And so every little experience in between is how we feel and move through time. It's our experiences and how we have emotions as humans and how we communicate. We're always communicating on this end with spirit, but we're always grounded here with the earth and having to use that to heal and to release and to work through as well. It was a beautiful visual. Thank you. I got it.
It is, but I'm going to make one adjustment. Is you're talking about on the side where it's I am. You're putting I am here, but I'm going to pull it back and say that I am is throughout because it's like everything it is. It's just that oneness. But I believe that us, if you want to stretch it out this way or however, it's I am is everything, but us as a human, I think, for all of us, we've got to be in the moment, experience what we got, look at us, look at, it's like dissecting everything, but dissecting nothing, and just being in it and experiencing the I am, whether it's through the dust and the water and the plants, or if it's this amazing energy that we'll get, sitting coming from the divine. And it's, it's just the differences in the vibrations or frequencies. But to me, it's like all of it's I am. Like even when you were doing your hands and moving it out, I could not see I am being on one end and earth on the other. It's like the whole thing is literally I am. It's just this way it's in front of me. It's way in my eyes. And everything else is what helps us on this journey of doing it. And we get, but going back to looking within and even the time, let's jump on another part, the circle, like repeating itself. Another part of it, we're dealing with the time repeating, and I think everybody hears this and heard this, but we're either in the future, kind of like you were saying earlier, looking where I'm supposed to be, where I'm going to be, or either we're in the past, not letting go of that and wondering like the whole woulda, coulda, shouldas, or maybe if I'd done this differently, maybe I'd already be there. And we're missing that center. So we get locked in a time that we're not even never going to be in again. We're not going to be back in the past. You're not going to be in the future. You're only now. So it's another kind of a locked in loop, which also goes back to the soul feeling locked in a loop in time, because we're not now, and being with I am now, and being connected, and know we're connected to all of it. We're not separate from the divine. We're not separate from the earth. We're actually part of this whole unit. So if you take out the images, and now I feel like I'm just rambling a little bit, but if you take out the images of what you look like, what I look like, what your house looks like, everything looks like, and just feel the energy, it's all just a flow of from the earth to the divine. It's all just chakras and light and energy just moving. And then we're doing our, once again, go to our other word of perception based off our experience, but it's still just this I am of energy. I guess then we can go back to what you said, the light body. It's all there, and it's just, but then the question is, where are you at? Are you here in the I am? And we still got to have this experience. We still got to go out and, if you have a yard, you got to mow your yard. If if you have a career, you have family, we still got to do all this. But still just know that, we need to be in the now, not in the time loop that's all up in here. So does any of that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And I love how you brought it back together, because what I broke apart into duality of the human or the earth and the magnetism, the root space versus the crown and divinity and all of that kind of stuff, you brought back into the oneness, and how even within the duality of the third dimensional space or the fourth dimensional space, we can still live in oneness through allowing the flow. Because when we allow the flow, we're getting vibrations from the earth and vibrations from the I am or from divinity, and it's all one thing. So we're picking it up from nature, we're picking it up from the invisible realms, and it's just all happening at once. So when our perception becomes stuck in time, because that's actually the issue then, when we live in that state of duality, is our perception stuck in time, then what do we do about that? You're right. I do hear that word stuck a lot with clients and different people, and everyone from time to time feels stuck. But a lot of the time when people come, they don't know, oh, well, I have this trauma I need to work through, or I have this thing I need to work through, or I just feel stuck, is something I hear a good bit as well. And then we go in and help them see where they're stuck. So how does that fit in?
Well, the question is why. When I ask people, why you feel stuck, and if they aren't aware of, they've got to get back into some deep healing. Most people end up speaking of stuff right now, like, I can't get over this. I'm doing this, and so it goes back to the question why. Why, truly why. And you just, as we keep asking and we keep going deeper, basically just that we have to go deeper to answer that question why. What's the beginning of this truly feeling stuck? Where's it truly come from? And we see patterns. This other thing is people, whether you're in counseling or what have you, people speak of patterns, and why does this keep reoccurring? Or even just have people come to me, why does this keep happening to you? Why does it keep happening to you? Because you're stuck in that pattern. You're in, and you are then perceiving yourself as this one way. This is who I am. This is how I am. You'll use terms. People use terms as, it's my personality. It's this, that, or the other. And it's just the way I am. Just the way I am. And it's like, is it really? Is it really? Or is it this how you've been molded by your own doing, unintentional doing. But so, long-winded answer, but if we just keep going back, to addressing that why, what is it you're holding on to? And that's where most of my work goes back to, is what are we holding on to that has caused you to think a certain way, or see people in a certain way, or more specifically, see yourself in a certain way. And when we dive into that, when a person really dives into a certain way and they truly release it to the point where it's no longer a feeling anymore, it's almost like everything behind them and everything in front of them all changed. When they get to that, and people can truly release it. So in other words, it's not just, it's like the people, when you look back and when you're carrying all this, and we look back at ourselves when we're carrying all this heaviness, we can go back and see our younger selves and do not see it in a positive way necessarily. But once you release it, you have a whole different perception of what that little kid looks like. Or what, was it a problem child, or was it, or an unlucky child? Like, no, you actually see it, and that changes everything in the front. So I didn't say in the front, in the future, it's not really. So going deep into the why, and it's all energy. It's my mind is starting to go in all these different directions, and I'm trying to pull it back, but
I see your duality there, because the more you talk, the more you get this light around your head that just goes like this. So it's like you're spiraling into your like oneness and into your spirit self. And then you're having to remind yourself that you're a person trying to talk in words that people can understand. Is what I feel like is happening. But what I'm hearing is like, it's about finding the trigger within that's keeping you stuck in that cycle. Because once we can release that trigger, it's going to bridge us into the harmony space, into being that heart that bridges everything and has everything all at once. So we're just getting to live time versus being stuck in time.
Right. We're here to experience, and versus being stuck, repeating things over and over, or repeating bad luck, or repeating, whatever somebody wants to describe it. But it's, there's so much we don't know, but it's just, we're here to experience. I've heard other people speak of, the universe is looking for experience through us, and sometimes we have to repeat it over and over. But we only have to repeat it over and over because we didn't really figure it out the first time. And whether it's repeating it over and over in this life, or if it's multiple lives, which kind of goes back to what I was saying, basically goes back to saying sometimes the soul can feel stuck because we keep doing it. We're holding on to those heavy feelings, and it keeps us from stepping beyond it. I guess my perception when it comes to us as humans, I mean, the thing that gets us every time is just negative emotional energy. I mean, they're really, whether it be ours from my own experience, or is from that we picked up from my parents or grandparents, or, just having to deal with people in a workplace. But all of it still comes down to is what's within, and are you looking outside of yourself? So it's all those energies. It's like I want to keep going back to just where it's vibration, and it's, one end of the scale versus another, and things like that. And it's like, look here, what are you feeling? And I'm pointing here, and that's not even right. I should be looking, like you were saying, in the heart, because this is just feeding off of what's backlogged or what's not flowing, and and then how we're seeing is based off of that perception of that pain or that backlog, which goes back to that whole circle, that cycle again. You're like, all right, here we go again. You're going to repeat it. You missed it 2 years ago. We're going to try it again now. You missed it 20 years ago. We're going to try it again now. Does that make sense?
Yes. So and it kind of goes both ways, because I feel like your subconscious thoughts and old contracts or beliefs or things like that can cause negative emotion. And so that becomes a trigger that we have to go back and heal. Where was this belief created because of my experiences? But then also, like you said, stuck energy or emotions can also cause repeating negative thoughts. If we have a negative emotion in our body, our minds could be trying to find a reason why that's there, and could be telling us negative things about our experiences or about our lives. So just being able to, number one, look within and see what is negative, and then ask the question, why, like you said, so we can spiral deeper into that and understand the why of why it's negative, where that began for us, release it into the earth, keep communicating as everything's happening at once within divinity, helps us to live in a dual space through oneness. I have another question, so I want to see if you have anything else to say while we're here before I dive into that, because that could be a tangent or it could just be a dead end. I just want to see where it goes.
No, I think we're good on that for now. Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, if we're looking at time as part of this oneness, right? So we're looking at like a dual being, because we are human 3D, but then also the divine I am living all at once in a state of unity. Time is in this. What aspects of time need to be healed or changed? And what aspects of time are sacred and meant to be kept as such, as divinity? Because time itself, it seems, could also be dual, not just the human energy body. Maybe time itself could have parts that need to be healed, changed, and triggered, and have parts that are intelligent information and parts of divinity and wisdom. I'll have to think about that one more myself. It just kind of came to me. You can yell at me after we hang up if you want.
No, I just gave me something to think about, but it's as you were talking, it was I've got to figure out where to take it from, but it's just like a part of me was like, time doesn't need to be healed.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Time is
Mm-hmm.
also just a perception.
Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of, and once again, this is showing your level of perception within the I am and within the oneness of everything. Because right now, there's a lot happening politically, collectively. There's wars out there, there's a lot going on. And there's a lot of people who are rising up as timeline workers. And so they are transmuting heavy energies of the collective. They're working to make sure that the timeline stays on track with love and with oneness and all of that kind of stuff. But even that feels like it is predestined to give a purpose from an even higher level of self, from like our seventh dimensional self. Because from way up here, the timeline is always going towards oneness, is always going to end at divinity, is always going to end at love. The timeline's always going to be where it needs to be. And so it's almost like here we have like the highest possible perception, and then different levels of perception underneath. And we all have jobs underneath that keep us having these experiences. And I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like some of us are meant to experience what it's like to help transmute the negative emotions of the collective and send healing to people in wars, and to work on the timeline itself and make sure it's in a proper love trajectory, while at the same time knowing everything's going to be okay, because we're meant to do this and it's always going to end up working out just as it's meant to be. So it's like different levels of perception even within times and timelines.
Going back to like the groups of people that are out and about, it's kind of like even my energy cascade is this past weekend, small group, 11 people. And in talking to them, it's when we get together with a common goal, the vibration changes.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on what the common goal is.
Mm-hmm.
Are most people disgruntled? Are they upset? And then, or let's say if those 11 people had all been angry, genuine, disgruntled, angry, you get those people together, the vibration drops. Well, you do it the other way around. Everybody's kind of working on the same page, looking for change, looking for growth, looking for what have you, protection, whatever. The vibration rises,
Mm-hmm.
and protection is really not the best word, but anyway, you get my concept.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I can tie back into all of what you're saying, but that was just my thoughts. Is we when we come together and we're not all just about me, of course, I don't mean me as we're looking back at myself, but me and how somebody else is going to help me, or why does it happen to me? But basically, me as I'm a group, I'm part of this. It raises the vibration, and I believe it can shift the time, it can shift the direction, it can shift our growth as a people.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it takes some. It's always taken some heavy things, whether it's being wars or what have you, to cause such a shift where we're still in 3D, but we have more of that connection of the fifth dimension or seventh dimension. So that, I think I lost your last part of your question, or what you're bringing out, but it's it's how we once, like you said, the perception, how we shift in our perception of the time, and what's happening, and the change within us.
Yeah. It's about bringing that harmony in, because even you said that on one level that doesn't need to heal, like it's going where it needs to go. But then on a different level, if we look more towards the human and those lower vibrations, technically everything's always going to be the way it's supposed to be, right? So why do we heal? Why do we bother? Why do we bother doing timeline work? Why do we bother to work on ourselves? And it all comes back to that love within. It all comes down to harmony. It comes down to having a happy life. It comes down to not being stuck in time, but getting to live in time. It gets down to releasing those heavy emotions. And it comes down to our human experience and what we want it to feel like as we move through these spaces.
You want
And
to have
you,
the experience, but you don't want to be stuck in it.
right, right.
You want to, I know most of us can say, well, no, I don't want to have the bad experiences. No, I guess not, but it is an experience. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't, like anybody else, I don't enjoy the bad ones either. But more importantly, I don't want to be stuck in them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be keeping looped back and even though it may not be having anything to do with anybody else's experience, I myself can be looped back when I can feel like my own time loop, because I can't get out of my junk, my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the having a bad experience or lower vibrational experience is nothing compared to being stuck in it over and over and over,
Yeah.
because we haven't been able to release it. We don't have you know, not enough of communities nowadays like what we're doing of helping people to move on. We're building back into that, but
You mentioned an energy cascade in a small group. You started talking about that. For those who don't know, who have never experienced one of your energy cascades, because Roland is from one of the same shamanic lineages that I'm from, but he's like a generation ahead of mine. So, but everything that he does is like his personal experience, he himself, what he's grown, what he sees, and it all seems to come from this I am um, perception and emotion, and a very beautiful, beautiful space. So you've kind of coined the term energy cascade, and this is outside of helping people heal those triggers and release their negative emotions. This is something that you do. Can you tell us what that is for those who don't know? What is an energy cascade?
okay. It started several years ago. I don't know, 7+ years ago, where I was supposed to speak at Body Mind Spirit Expo in Raleigh. It's one of these
Mm-hmm.
deals where you sign up and get a booth, and then you sign up and do a talk. And I honestly do not like standing up and just talking. I want to be in something where people are active in, take part in.
Experience.
And I'm literally like a few hours before going, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do. And then it's like everything was just literally, I was asking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then all of a sudden it was there. So, and even the term energy cascade came a little bit later, but it was still given to me. And it was literally just telling to get people together to just be.
Mm.
We're not, the people in the group don't need to do anything. It's not even a meditation. We're not putting any title in it. It's literally like being in the moment and feeling. And the idea of the energy, or the term energy cascade, is because everything's energy. And when we do come together, and we come together as a group and to heal, I mean, that's the bottom line of it, is to heal. The vibration rises, and then it literally is like it'll cascade over you and everybody else. And it's just, in other words, it doesn't stay within a group of the 11 people I just did, or if another group was 40 people, it doesn't stay there. It goes up and it starts magnifying more, and it keeps going and keeps going. And some people in the group will actually see where it's going over and expanding. And also within the energy cascades, I do it in series of rounds. Like a lot of times I do it with 2 hour period and 4 or 5 rounds, and we'll stop and talk about what people experience. And the main reason for that is such that, we'll get people to be more like myself, that tends to be to quiet, not say anything. But once we realize somebody else is experiencing the same thing I am, we'll start chiming in. It's like, oh, okay. And then that awareness awakens people up a little bit more. But each round, the vibration increases. And I myself, what I'm doing is I'm helping to move energy and helping people release energies, and helping with their healing and stuff as I'm going around the group. But the energy cascade is literally just get people together. It's a healing event where we just be. We're not having to do any kind of particular work, any particular kind of ceremony. It's just that oneness is together, and our vibration comes together and it rises. And here's the thing is, when the vibration rises, just like this last event I just did, in the beginning, the first round, I think out of the 11 people, 9 had not done it before. And they're all kind of looking at each other going like, all right, what are we in here? What's going on here? And each one of them told me, not each one of them, several of them told me afterwards, they were nervous, didn't know what we're going to do. They knew, but they didn't know how it was going to come out. and they were kind of blocked off. It's like, okay, let's just sit here for a little bit. But as the vibration rises, you can't block anymore. It
Mhm.
starts going deep and it starts pulling up the heavier vibration. In other words, the heavier vibration can't stay there if you allow yourself to keep looking within and allow yourself to feel it. And by the end, there was like 5 different people that were just letting emotions fly, crying, different things happen. But it's because they allowed it. It was their work. So the energy cascades it's like healing, but not really doing anything. It's by being in a group. It's allowing yourself to look within, feel safe within a group, and feel the vibration of all these people who are in the same boat as you in some way or another, or even if they've done their healing, they have still experienced it. So they understand, they have compassion for you. And that we're holding this space and clearing and releasing. And just like, we can do so much just by being in that moment, feeling that time, and looking here, literally looking here and feeling, feeling, allowing yourself to feel. Let me step back on the I am. We've mentioned that several times, and just as a reminder for people who haven't, or people who have heard me, but the I am that I have on my site, and is behind me on that little picture back there, is what's actually sent to me. It's not something I created up and decided to use. It was literally sent to me several times through meditation, and I was just slow to take it on. And the first time it just came to me gradually in a meditation. The next time was a little faster, and by the third time they were like slamming against me. And it still took me quite a while after that, many months, 6 months to a year, to really kind of fully accept it for what it really was versus trying to tie it into something else. But it's just I am. It's everything. It's us. Is everything. And I've incorporated that into all my work. And it's very interesting when I get towards the end of a session, I get somebody just to say that 2 or 3 times, just those words, to watch their light change, watch their energy change, because it's that true self, as you mentioned earlier. It's that oneness. And it's the same thing in an energy cascade. It's all tying that thing. And we can look at tons of different things, but it still comes down to is where are you vibrating, and is it keeping you stuck? So that's the work. That's my work.
Thank you so much. That's heartfelt. That's beautiful. And I have had the privilege of being in a couple of energy cascades with you. And the one thing I can say is that they are very connecting, which
Yeah.
kind of makes it like a ceremony in itself, because when you go through ceremony, you connect with everyone's energy and it all kind of becomes bonded for a while. It becomes one. And everybody slowly, as they open, they all allow the energy to connect, to become that big spiral, that big bubble, that overflowing fountain. And some people have had, in the ones I've seen, some people have had very physical or visceral experiences, such as the
Mhm.
first round, oh, I'm not experiencing anything. And then by the third round, they feel lighter or happier, or maybe felt some tingling. Whereas on the opposite spectrum of that, I have sat through these things with you and literally felt the floor beneath me sinking out from under me, and the Merkaba light coming in, and these angels coming in and like taking over, and me levitating out of my body. Like I've had some pretty big experiences with these, because it's like plugging people into a battery. It's like when everyone connects, the energy just gets so high. You're just heightening what we are and amplifying it and then showing it to us. Okay, now who are you? What do you feel? What are you experiencing? And
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that is it, is who are you? and it's I am. And it's so of all my work, and I think most of everybody's work when we do energy work is we're trying to get those individuals to see that light, to go back to that. But what you did when you mentioned about like even like feeling like the floor moving and everything happening, even still the person has to get to a point of surrendering.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found in many of my energy cascades is you watch those who've just had enough. They've had enough and now they're willing to surrender. And then those that still have that protection up, like, no, I'm not going there. I'm not doing that. And that's one of the big differences, but at least they can be there, and it raises the awareness with them. Even if a person doesn't experience anything through it of their own, but they'll be in that group and they'll watch all these other people that do. And they'll end up leaving going, how do I get there? What do I do? Or something to the point. And in a way, itself, that is still also healing, because it's like it opens up their eyes just a little bit. And I've said it in some of these energy cascades, is if I can get you just to open up your awareness just a little bit, you'll start the healing process.
The where am I stuck and why?
Yeah, and get out of that loop of the time, which is the loop of woulda, coulda, shoulda in the past and what may happen in the future. It's like, what about now? What are we missing now? What are we? And is there time now? I mean, is it just now? Is it just a term? And you mentioned earlier, and I said I still don't feel that time needs to be healed, because that's just a perception. It's still just us.
Mm-hmm. Us. Exactly. Roland, you have a surprise for us, don't you?
Well, if you're meaning I'm going to be at your event in June
Yeah.
for one day for an energy cascade, yes.
Yes. Roland is going to be a guest speaker out there. So at the iShine event in June, he is going to be hosting an energy cascade for everybody. And this is a big surprise. And so we're so happy to be able to experience this with you. So thank you so much for joining us out there on the mountain and helping us get to that space where we can know who we are, because that's exactly what that entire retreat is about. So I'm super glad to have you out there with us. Is there anything else that you want people to know? Any of your upcoming events, your stuff? And of course, we're going to have Roland's links in the description here. Anything else you want anybody to know?
Well, I do have, if you go to my website, I do have several energy cascades lined up, Central North Carolina over the next month, and some into May, a couple into May, but at various metaphysical stores around. One's in Zebulon at Sage and Smudge and Quantum Life and Cary, and Alchemy of Wellness in Sanford. But so several of those going on. But I will share that, how we get messages and we get information, and as we go through our changes in our healing process and stuff. And one of the things that I've been getting, and I think you and I have actually spoken about this before in years past, and I have a tendency to be a little slower at holding off stuff, but or taking on stuff. But Spirit recently really threw in front of me about I need to keep shifting more to the healing for healers. Not that I'm on a different level of anybody else. It's just getting healers to do that very thing with energy cascades and such, where, everybody has abilities. It's just whether you've tapped into it, but getting you to tap into more of yourself to let those grow more. So, I'm looking forward to, as I work with groups of people, because every time I get a group together that is mostly healers, it's amazing how much it just takes off. Everything just kind of flies. You don't have to do much introduction or anything. Everybody's like jumping in, and the vibration just takes off, and then we're able to leave and just offer so much more for people. So anyway, that's just kind of a recent change that Spirit keeps throwing back at me. It's like, okay, we'll make something happen here. So I'm looking forward to the event in June, because I know you're going to have lots of people that are experiencing the healing, and just the whole event and environment. It's going to be good.
It is. It's interesting you said that, because I said something, I think just a couple Sundays ago or last Sunday on my video, where I know that when people are drawn to me or this channel, that it's because they have a gift, they have some sort of healing or teaching ability. And even if they don't know it yet, I'm a teacher of teachers. So even if they don't know that they're a healer, if they feel like they're the very beginning level, I know when they come here, there's something to tap into, and they're going to be powerful. They're going to be big. They're going to get what they need out of that experience, and they're going to start doing it for the world. So there's definitely something there. And then this group in June, it's an intimate group. This isn't like hundreds of people or anything. We have less than 30 people who are going to be there. And I think 6 of these are facilitators, or the teachers and healers. And a lot of these people who are coming have done a ton of healing work. They've also done some training and things like that. But there are some who consider themselves beginners, but who I know have a gift. So if you're out there and you don't think you're a beginner, or you don't think that you're experienced enough to do something like this beginner level, if you're here right now, you're supposed to be there. And me and you, Roland, we're going to talk more about what you just said too, because I have something to add to that, but I don't want the public to know about it yet.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you so, so much for coming on today and talking to everybody here again, because we've missed you. It's been a long time. And you guys go to Roland's website if you want to see him get some healing work done, or attend one of his energy cascades. And come in June if you want to have that whole experience. But thank you so much, Roland. It was good having you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Always good. Always good with you.
Bye, everybody.
All right.